Well, hello and welcome to another webinar here on the Societies of Photographers page and members group. It's great to be back. We're here joined today with Mark Baber from Sony, all about going mirrorless. How are we doing, Mark?
Great, Colin. Great to be back again. Thank you ever so much.
No, thank you for coming back. I know there's been lots of questions in the webinars that we've hosted with you over the last couple of weeks. You know, members are really keen to get more information on going mirrorless and you know, all the kind of technical side of it. So we had that fantastic webinar with Gary, was it last week, the week before, something like that? Time has all amalgamated into one at the moment. But that was a fantastic webinar on kind of like from a pro side of switching from digital SLR to a mirrorless system. And today we're going to be talking more on kind of like the technical aspects and the function of the cameras.
Yeah, absolutely. And today's webinar isn't about me telling you what you should be buying and things like that. This is just to give an insight of what we would normally do at a trade show, like a roadshow with you, meeting all your members, non-members, etc., guests, and explaining how the system works and comparing it to what it's like having a DSLR and what's it like having a mirrorless. So from that point of view, we'll go through, I'll just go over an overview. We'll be looking at just introducing the kit, where it sits in the market, give an understanding of the range. And then I've got some demos where we can have a look at the menu system briefly. We haven't got enough time to go through everything, but we'll look at the autofocus as well. So we win a huge amount of awards and reviews around the autofocus system to give you an idea how you can compose your shot very differently to, say, if you're using a DSLR. Or even an older mirrorless system from Sony, an A mount, Minolta system, etc. You know, IAF has been with us over the 3 generations of kit, so it's not new to us. I know some manufacturers are adding that into their kit, and that's great to see innovation coming from the ground up. So an animal eye autofocus is relatively new in the last couple of years with manufacturers, obviously including Sony. For those that are watching, stay with us. We do have some links that will enable you to have some special offers. We are working with WEX on this opportunity as well, this webinar. So there's some links that we'll have at the end that we can share with you. And if we've got any Q&A throughout the seminar, the webinar, then great. Or we can look at them at the end as well.
Yeah, brilliant. That's what I was just going to say. So anybody tuning in, please do put questions into the comments, and we will get through as many of them as possible. So what I tend to do with the webinars is that as questions are coming in, if they're relevant to what Mark's talking about, then I will pitch them at him straight away. And if not, I will hold them back and we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end.
Yeah, brilliant.
Brilliant. Are you happy to crack straight on with the presentation?
Yeah, I will. So here we go. So hopefully we've done in about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, so we've got some time for Q&A as well. So if you do have some questions throughout, please let Colin know through the feed. So yeah, fantastic. So what I'll do first is just give you an overview of what mirrorless and DSLR is all about. So what I've got here on the screen is Sony A mount. So we've inherited that system from Minolta a good few years ago. It's got a 24-70 full frame lens with 24-70 lens with a full frame sensor, and we've got the E mount full frame A7 Mark III on the left of my screen. I'm just pointing out on here where the sensor is on the A mount camera, and it's right where in the middle, and the lens flange back. The distance between the two is quite large compared to where the sensor is on the full frame camera and the lens readout on the mirrorless. So you can see that the distance between the readout is far shorter on a mirrorless camera than a more analog camera like the A mount system. I'll move that one away and just give you a little bit more overview of the A mount itself. Like a DSLR, it's big, it's bulky, it's got a lot of functionality buttons on there. So this isn't a negative aspect of the camera, it's just the way it's made. You can see there briefly the translucent mirror. So this works very similar to a DSLR. It has a translucent mirror instead of a mirror box and a prism. and it also has an electronic viewfinder. So light enters the lens, goes straight through the translucent mirror and hits the sensor. So the EVF gives you a live view of what the sensor sees. So live view was always added to DSLRs as an additional piece of technology, because DSLRs weren't made for live view. And of course, now with mirrorless changes in mirrorless technology, that has changed now dramatically. So on an A-mount camera, you've got orange dot on an orange dot on the lens, and I've got small hands, so it's quite big in my hand. But battery life's very good. You have things like flip out screens and so on. So let's bring in, I think, the APS-C camera. So the APS-C is a smaller, lightweight body. This is the A6000 series, and I've put it alongside the A-mount just to show you the size and weight. Fits lovely in my hands. As I said, I've got smaller hands. Flat retro modern. It's got a side viewfinder, not a central viewfinder. Smaller grip, obviously smaller battery. The APS-C sensor is 1.5 times on full frame. And as you can see here, the sensor, again, compared to where the sensor on the A-mount camera is a lot closer to the lens. So you do find you get faster autofocus, faster readout speed as well on the smaller cameras. I'm just going to take you around the camera itself. There's a variety of ranges I'll go into in more detail a bit later. But as you can see, when you take off the lens, the thickness of the body is very thin compared to the A-mount. You have not a flip out screen, but a screen that pulls out, so you can use it when you're looking up or looking down in a crowd, for example, or if you wanted to compose slightly differently. Pop-up flash on some of the cameras as well, and there's the screen. Just pull that one out. Again, days of lying on the ground with a without with a fixed screen are gone. So you can actually put the camera on the floor, and you can actually control it with a smartphone if you wanted to, for example. That lens there on that camera is an equivalent of a 24-70, which then, if you put next to this the full frame A7 Mark III, this is a like-for-like system. So on the A7 Mark III, you've got a 24-70. As you can see, the thickness is quite similar, but the grip is bigger because obviously you've got a battery that's double the capacity with a central viewfinder and a side viewfinder. Yes, the battery is double the capacity on the A7 Mark III. One thing you can do is you can swap the lenses. You don't need an adapter with these two systems. The mount is exactly the same. So the mount that's on the full frame camera is the same as the APS-C, although the sensors are smaller. But as you can imagine, if you put a full frame lens on an APS-C body, it will automatically crop by 1.5 times. And likewise, if you put the APS-C lens on the A7 Mark III body, it will crop in on that camera as well. So you do lose resolution. You don't lose any autofocusing or any features of the camera. But the resolution on an A7 Mark III, which is 24 million pixels, will drop down to around 10. The focal area on the sensor will be greater, so you do have less autofocus points than you would do on a native system. Okay. So that's just an overview of the range of where it sits in the market. That's A-mount, so the older model system. That's the A99 Mark II, the full frame A7 Mark III, and the APS-C A6000 series. I think that one was a 6400. So let's have a look at the A7 Mark III in more detail. So full frame, as you know, you get greater shallow depth of field, improved resolution. Focusing now on some of our cameras is the same as at the high end as it is in the mid and lower end. So you can see here we've got an external mode dial, which has the creative modes of PASM. You have a back button dial, which can control the shutter or the aperture. You can customize that, as I'm demonstrating on this camera. And as I turn the camera around, you can see that on the top, you've got a shutter button, on and off button. You can use back button focus. So you can customize one of the buttons at the back. The batteries run out on this one, but we do have live demonstration a bit later. You can see a joystick. It's also a touchscreen. Now, the touchscreen on our cameras are only for composing the autofocus, not for the menus. And then at the back, you've got a mode dial, which has a display button, a continuous button, an enter button, trash can. And all these are customizable. You can change these accordingly. And again, you see the screen. You've got the flip out, the tiltable screen for high shots and lower shots. And there's the battery. So the double capacity, we normally quote around 720 shots on this full resolution, but it is double the capacity of what you find on the APS-C cameras. Now, we call that the W battery. I'm just going to pull one of these out now and compare the two together. I would advise if you do buy a smaller camera, it's normally best to take a couple of batteries out. We do sell battery grips as well, which obviously extends the height of the full frame camera. But that just gives you an idea of the size and the capability of that as well. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at the range in more detail, mainly around full frame, because we haven't got the time to go through absolutely everything. So what I'm going to do is just pull up here the actual range itself, and just to give you an idea of where everything kind of sits. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see A7 Mark 1, 2, and 3. Now, the A7 has been discontinued. These are our all-rounder. This is a camera that can do almost anything. It has very fast autofocus. It has really good low light, and it has really good detail in resolution. And normally, you're looking at price point for this is around about £1,500, £1,600. At the moment, there is cashback offers, and you can save some money with us with WEX as well, which we'll go through a bit later. The A7S, now S is short for sensitivity. This is our low light beast of a camera. The A7S Mark II is our latest camera in the low light element, and you're looking at, you know, clean ISOs around 100,000. And if you do your research, there are professional videographers and filmmakers out there that are shooting this camera at ridiculous ISOs and clean through recorders, etc. So as I've mentioned video a lot there, it is a video-centric camera as well as a stills with 12 million pixels. The A7R, or the A7R2, 3, and 4, the 4 being the latest, is focused around resolution. And we're looking at 42 million pixels or 60 million pixels from a full frame camera. Ridiculous detail in these cameras, excellent ISO performance, and you're looking at 10 frames mechanical shutter, around 70 odd buffer shots before the card starts to fill up and slow down. The element of changing that into from full frame to APS-C in the camera means that you get dropped down from 60 to 28 million pixels with 100% AF coverage. So this is probably the first time in a while that wildlife photographers are looking at this camera, probably more so than they ever have done before, because it's more so suited to commercial, landscape, high resolution, etc. And then the A9. The A9 is dedicated to speed. Now, a lot of people think the A9 is the flagship camera of our range. The A7 III, the A7S II, the A7R4, and the A9 II are all flagships in their pillars of genre of photography. So that just gives you a brief overview, really, of where everything sits. And now let's have a look at closer detail of the whole range. So there's a number of APS-C cameras in our range, 6100, 6400, 6600. They all have this flat retro modern style. This is the 6100. It's entry level, around £500–600. High frames per second. It has all the features of animal IAF, etc., and IAF. And the 6400 is more geared towards the video market. So ideal for vlogging. It has slow-mo. It has 4K HDR video. It also has an intervalometer. It has grading abilities like you find on the higher-end cameras. It focuses, in record speed. And you can also take stills from 4K in the camera as well. Leading on to the A6600, this is where it's slightly different. Same type of body, but the battery is the same as the A7 series, so the A7 Mark III, so double the capacity. All our cameras also have the ability to connect with our mobile phones with a free app. that you download on Android and iOS. And there you can see the battery. This is the Z battery. We covered it earlier, but this is in the A6600. And that has around 700 shots. So we had a look at the range just earlier. Just briefly go through this again, just to remind you, this is the full frame. So A7 is the all-rounder, A7S is low light, R is resolution, and 9 is speed. So this is the A7 III, 24 million pixels, 10 frames per second. You can see that even from the original A7, the A7 III is still very similar in size and body. You have a lot of functionality on the top, on the back as well. And on this, you have near enough 100% AF coverage with 693 AF points. There's some similarities throughout the range where you've got time-lapse, etc. But one key feature here is that it now has dual card slots. So the A7S to 12.2 million pixels and the ridiculously high ISO performance. The pixels are a lot larger than normal, so they let a lot of light in. And this also has stabilization. Just to remind you, though, we've got a lot of lenses in the range as well. Roughly, we've got around 57 now. So this has changed since I made this video. It does focus in very low light conditions, and it is highly recommended for video. The A7R, again, 10 frames per second. This is the R3. Very similar in body. So it's good that I'm showing you these, because if you see these for the first time, they almost all look the same. But this is the one with the 42 million pixels. The IAF on the new models as well focuses twice as fast as what we find on the original models. And of course, the functionality is a lot better as well, with the ability to compose your shots better with the touchscreen. And finally, the A9 Mark II, just to give you an overview, it's blackout free. It shoots 20 frames a second, and you can continuously fill the card up until the card finishes. It's a fantastic EVF. Again, it's a stack layered sensor where you have memory in the sensor. So the shots of 276 raw shots goes to the memory of the sensor before it hits the card. So the overview here, the A7 III is brilliant for all elements of photography. It's combining speed and sensitivity resolution. The A7S is the best low light performing camera we've got in our range. And then the A7R is fantastic for resolution. And the A9 is the best for speed. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to just seeing the whole range together with a bit of information around lenses. So if you do have any questions, please leave them to the end if you can, unless Colin's got something, burning questions you can let me know about. We'll have a look at also some adapters. There's adapters for A mount to E mount, and there's also third-party adapters. Now, there's nothing better than a native system with a native lens. So when you combine the two technologies together, this has been tested between body and lens. So any development has been made through that whole system. So when you combine a Sony body with a Sony lens, you're getting the best AF focusing system and the best transfer of data, or the handshake within our range. If you use third-party adapters, you can bring your glass over from your manufacturer that you have. Predominantly, we see a lot of Canon and Nikon customers looking to switch and bringing their glass over to the system. So I've got a demonstration here with a Sigma adapter that just shows you how easy it is to combine the two technologies together. But rest assured, the best system is to have a native body with native glass. So just comparing the three systems together we've just looked at, we've got APS-C, we've got full frame, and we've got the A mount. And again, the size and weight of the different technology is clearly evident. The APS-C is that flat retro modern body with a very small chassis, very similar to the A7 series. And then if we look and compare to the A mount, the older system, which is similar to DSLR, it is a lot bulkier. But they all work in a very similar way. Light enters the lens. I did mention earlier, one mount is really important, that you have that mount for all systems, including our Pro Cam. Now, lenses, we have a huge amount of lenses. I think there's 57 different varieties at the moment of full frame APS-C lenses, and just short of 100 when you mix them all together. We have Zeiss lenses, a Sony Zeiss system, that we work in collaboration. We have our own standard lenses, and we also have our G Master. And in this instance, this is a 35mm standard Sony lens, 1.8, and a Sony Zeiss 1.4. So you can see size and weight does change, not only in the bodies, but also in the lens. And you can imagine the 1.4 is a lot more expensive than the 1.8. Another example is the 85mm. So the 85mm, very similar body, very similar design as the 35mm, roughly around £500, a good value for money at 1.8. And here's the G Master. You'll notice it's a red square with a silver gold G on the logo. This is our premium lens. This is 1.4. The shallow depth of field in this lens is incredible, but the size and weight is slightly bigger. There's a lot of glass in there, but the performance between the two is very, very different. And then a standard lens in the form of 24-70. I think I've got the E-mount, the A-mount and the E-mount here. This is a Sony Zeiss we had earlier. And just showing comparison to the Sony Zeiss A-mount. Again, because there's a lot of glass there, the diameter is very large. But again, size and weight is very different. And now we'll compare that to the Sony G Master 24-70. So again, this is our premium lens. It's a lot taller. There's a lot more glass in there, and it is heavier. The price is around, can fluctuate between £1,600 and £1,800, whereas the 24-70 is around £1,000. So you can see there the difference in size and weight. The 24-70 Zeiss is f4. So you get a very distinctive Zeiss Sony look with that compared to a G Master, which you might be looking for when you're shooting, but you can take that out of post as well. So this is the adapter for A-mount lenses. So this is the LEA4, I think this one is. This has a autofocus phase detection motor in it, so it's applicable to some of our lenses. There's also another one where it's just a direct connector. You're looking at around £200 for this, but it means that you can now use your older A-mount system lenses and the Minolta system from legacy lenses a few years ago. You can use that directly onto the E-mount and the full frame E-mount lenses bodies. You do lose some kind of functionality. For example, on the A9 Mark I, the frames per second will drop down to 10 if you use the adapter. Now, this is the third-party adapter. Again, we don't endorse this and we don't promote it, but when we're doing events, we bring it along with us because we see a lot of people that have got their own DSLR glass and they want to try it on and are really surprised how well it works. So it's a good demonstration. This one is made by Sigma. Like I said, we're not endorsing anything here, but it is the one that tends to work probably the best. There's one of my leftover Canon lenses that I had from my old kit. Still a very good lens. And I've put that on the Sigma adapter, so red on red. Those of you who have DSLRs will be familiar with the fit. And that then goes white on white. And there we have it. It's as simple as that. It goes on. And as long as you've looked after your glass, and no doubt most people that are watching have, then, and it's fully working, then you will reap the benefits of using the Sony system with your current glass. There is a difference, being a camera geek as well as somebody that works for a manufacturer, you'll see there is a difference between a native focusing and the third-party adapter. Now, this is a Sigma 35mm EF lens, and again, works very well with the adapter. And what you find now, the latest models will have all autofocus functionality. That's as simple as that. That's how it connects and works very, very well indeed. And again, just to show you on the APS-C sensor, I mean, if you've got a 400mm DSLR lens, make sure that on that one where I put the adapter on adapter, you take the adapter off. Putting a larger lens on a smaller body would look quite ridiculous, but the fact is you can put larger lenses on smaller bodies if you want to carry less in your kit. By adding larger glass from another manufacturer, it kind of defeats the object slightly, but I totally understand in the market that there is people have spent a lot of money on lenses and technology in the past and aren't going to necessarily sell the quality of glass they've got just to go into one system. So what I would say with that is, if you are in the market looking to switch to, say, Sony from a DSLR brand, then our retailers like Wex will talk to you and talk to you about what kit you've got, and if you give you the value of that kit, and you could offload that against something brand new as well. So please talk to your retailers when you're at events or going back into stores. And when we share you the links later, there'll be the ability to follow up with Wex as well. Colin, I'm just going to pause there. I don't know if you want to come in for a second while I just have a quick glass of water.
Yeah, sure. Fantastic presentation so far. Loads of questions coming in. One question that quite a few people have asked is about the specification table and where they can get a hold of a copy from. So if you would like a copy of that, please just post in the comments, and then I'll send that table out to anybody who posts a comment to say can I have a copy of it. I'll send you a Facebook Messenger with the JPEG of that, so you'll be able to.
Brilliant, yeah, because you've got the PDF, so you can send that out. We do have a physical copy that we normally take out at events and should be in stores. But of course, with what's happening at the moment and what's happened, it may be that they've run out or you can't find them. So, and instead of sending it out through post, Colin has got a copy of that. So please take advantage of it, because it is quite a, it gives you the whole view of the range.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do you want to do a couple of questions now before you move on to your next?
Yeah, because we're well ahead. We've got the menu system to look at, some autofocuses, focus system, and animal IAF and IAF as well. So yes, throw some more questions. Go for it.
Okay, so we'll do a couple of questions. So Kim was asking, it's kind of a follow-on to what you were just talking about now. So what mount do I need when I buy the A7 Mark III for my Canon EF lenses?
Right, so you've got Canon glass and you're going to go and buy a Sony A7R3. Okay, so like I said, we don't endorse and recommend we use them, because obviously it brings to life a story. The one I was using in the video is a Sigma adapter. It's called an MC11 adapter. You can find that at most retailers, and in fact some retailers do deals with that as well. So have a chat with Wex and have a look at their website. We're working with Wex on this. There are a number of other lens manufacturers. I think the best thing, without going through the whole lot, is if you type in Canon to Sony adapter on your search engine, then there's bound to be a load of things that come up that you can have a look. Go to the Wex website as well. I know they've got a variety of manufacturers that do that. You can buy a really cheap one that's manual focus only. So again, depending on what your type of genre of photography is, that might be all you need, and that just makes the connection. There's no autofocus handshake. Or then if you want the full AF workings of a Sony body, then yes, go for one that's got autofocus. But we can't, obviously we don't make them, we don't endorse them, etc. We can't guarantee that they're going to work. So the best thing is talk to your retailer, Wex in this instance, and no doubt the stores will give you and their call center the best information you can get.
Brilliant. Elaine is asking, out of the 4 bodies shown earlier, which one would you recommend for aviation photography?
Oh, good one. Well, the A9 is our fastest buffer and most reliable autofocus system we've got in the range. So if you want the best, then the A9 or the A9 Mark II. It's not just the way it focuses, it's the way it buffers. So you could just continuously shoot until the card fills up 20 frames per second. I think I've even seen people making movies out of it, out of stills, which is crazy, but good at the same time. Of course, there's a premium with the higher end cameras. The A9 is around 3,000. Again, with offers, we can offer you some good value for money with Wex with this activity. And the A9 II is around £4,500. Our entry level, or our all-rounder, it's way above entry, is the A7 Mark III, which has the same type of autofocus system that the A9 has. So it covers 693 AF points across the sensor. So it's not as fast and as reliable, and buffers are the same, but you do get an element of it. without the premium price. So like I said, you're looking at, with cashback offers, etc., you know, a sub £1,500. So if that's part of your budget, then you could consider the A7 III or the A7 IX. That's the A7 IX. I'm talking about the A9 Mark 1 or Mark 2.
Brilliant, perfect. Thanks for that. Another kind of question on recommendations. Zoltan is asking, what camera and lens would you recommend for landscape photography, where they normally use a Nikon D750 with an 18-35G 3.5 lens?
Okay, again, if you're looking at wide angle, we can go extreme from, we just released a lens actually, so very topical, on Tuesday, a 12-24 f2.8. So that's brand new G Master lens. So you could go ultra wide. There's an F4 version of that, which is 12-24, which is a lot cheaper. You could then look at a 16-35. Now, like I showed in the video earlier, there's a Zeiss version and also a G Master version. The Zeiss is F4, so pretty good for landscapes as you narrow down that aperture, and it's got a really good contrasty look to it, which again you can get rid of in post. Or if you want to go for the faster, more brighter f2.8, again size and weight will change with that. It'll get bigger because there's a lot of glass. It's got a slightly bulbous end. Then you're looking at the 16-35 G Master. If you wanted to use the smaller lightweight lenses that you find with the APS-C range, then there's remember this has a crop factor of 1.5. So you could go for a 16mm lens, which is the equivalent of a 24mm lens. You could go for a 10-18, which is the equivalent of a 15-30, I can't add up, 20, 25, something like that. But the advantage you get with that is obviously it's a smaller, very lightweight, and they are considerably cheaper as well. So huge amount of options. I think with that customer, Colin, you might want to send one of the PDFs with the lens range, because there's a huge range that you can choose from. But again, yes, I would recommend something like a 16-35. F4, I love taking that out when I'm doing landscapes because it is lightweight, and on an A7 Mark III, it's a good combination as well.
Brilliant, perfect. David is asking about the A9. Would it be okay to take out on the water, as I have a lot of sailing shoots?
Good question. We did probably a couple of years ago now, we did a workshop with another retailer down on the Solent, actually, with shooting, photographing some World War II boats. You can imagine I had all my kit out, and there's splashes everywhere. So reassuringly, and there's a little caveat with this, we do say our products are dust and moisture resistant. We don't say weatherproof or anything like that, because if you look at the body itself, I've got one here. Traditionally, most of the camera is sealed, with the exception of certain areas on the back plate. So we can't obviously say that it's fully weather sealed. However, through experience, and I think that's probably important that we've tested this at events, is that we find as long as you look after your cameras and you're not exposing the sensor to the elements, then yes, it will withstand most weathers and temperatures. And just make sure you're holding on to something as well, like some of our customers at the time didn't. So you can imagine some of the kit was going all over the place. But yeah, I'm confident to say that the weather resistant side of our cameras is robust enough for all manners of shooting. So rest assured, yes, the A9, the A9A, 9 II, the A7R4 have even more improvements to that part of technology as well.
Brilliant. We'll do one more question, and
okay,
we'll let you go on to the menu system. Can I adjust the JPEG color balance on my A7 Mark III? I found that the deep purples was showing as a bluer color.
You can. I mean, you can go into the menu system, and you can change the saturation in camera, the contrast and the sharpness. You could use certain profiles as well, not necessarily the creative modes, but you could also look at the video profiles in the camera, and of course post. So there are a variety of software that you can use to take that out. If it's if that doesn't solve your that challenge there, then again, it might be worth resetting the camera, or have a chat with your local retailer just to make sure that the camera's okay, or take it back to our service center in Pencoed. Again, if it's in warranty, then we can have a look at that. If not, then we need to follow the procedures that our company has. But if it's not an issue with the technology, then you can obviously change that accordingly. And there's a huge amount of online kind of tutorials to get a certain look that you're trying to get with different genres of photography. So yes, you can obviously change that. It is limited what you can do in the camera. You've got more control if you're shooting raw externally. So yeah,
of course. Brilliant. Right. There's loads more questions coming in, but I will hold them off.
Well, let's fire away for about another 10-15 minutes, and then we can wrap up with some questions. So I'm going to take a look at the menu system very briefly, and then look at in more detail the autofocus and the eye and animal IAF as well. So we're just going to flick here. So this is just an overview of the menu system. You've got some tabs along the top. The first tab is dedicated to photography. The second is video. The third is networking and transferring, playback, overall settings, and then your own menu. So you can see, again, there's a huge amount of pages here, and we won't go through everything, but you can change. I'll pick some out as I'm talking. You've got the chance to change from compressed to uncompressed raw. You have an intervalometer settings in there. You can change your back button focusing. You can change the autofocus tracking speed. I was talking to a customer today, actually, about how they can change the settings on their camera. One being locked on. Out of the box, it sits on 3, so this is something it's worth playing about with if you do have one of these cameras. Again, you can change the ISO, and although there's a lot of menus here, you can customize a lot of these to certain buttons on the external element of the camera. Going into video, we've got obviously 4K, we've got hybrid log gamma, you've got some really high quality footage, you've got slow and quick, so you've got slow-mo, 120 frames per second in HD. You can change the autofocusing speed, you can change the optical image stabilization, you can also zoom in the lens as well, whilst you're using, say, a 35mm lens, you can zoom in. And as I go through the remainder of the menu, you can customize all these buttons. So even though they're defaulted to a function, you can change all these, and I'll show you the function button in the next video. You can do it in stills and in video, and again, you can change the front and back dials as well. Silent shooting, obviously with mirrorless cameras, there is no mirror box or prism. And of course, you've got Bluetooth, FTP, control with your smartphone. You can send images to your television as long as it's wireless compatible. You can edit some of the images in playback as well, and you can edit and change the intervalometer. And in the setup, again, a lot of menus here that when I'm demonstrating, I don't actually go through most of these, but you can change the position on your touchscreen. So if your nose is slightly larger than normal and it touches the screen, you can turn off an area of the screen. You can USB power as well, which I'm doing with the video camera that's recording me, so you don't have to change the battery. And you can change the slot correspondent with your relevant shooting. So you can shoot simultaneously, raw JPEG, video, stills, etc. And you can switch between the two forms of media. On the A7 III, it has the bottom slot is made for the new fast cards. You can check the firmware, and in my menu, you can completely change it. You've got 5 menus that will add different elements of how you want to set the camera up. So again, a very quick overview there. And anything that's grayed out, what's really good about these cameras is anything that's grayed out, it will actually tell you why it's grayed out. It helps sometimes if I'm demonstrating something doesn't work. I can quickly look at the screen and it tells me that maybe I can't use the flash, for example, because I'm in silent mode. A common cause of not being able to get your flash to work. So little settings like that. So that just gives you an overview. And the latest models have the newer style you've seen there compared to the Mark 1s and the Mark 2s. And that also applies to the A6600 series as well, A6000 series as well. Okay, so what we'll look at now is we'll have a bit of fun with the autofocusing. And I've set up in my shed here. Let's just flick over to there. These are my son's dinosaurs. And what you're seeing now is what you see is what you get screen. So I'm seeing what the sensor sees, the back of the screen. I also see this in the viewfinder. So what I'm going to do is talk you through all the different autofocus points and how we focus and how you can compose differently. Also changing some of the settings. So I can bring up a live histogram. I can bring up a level gauge. I can bring up, as I would shoot maybe a DSLR, I see the image in the viewfinder and this on the back of the screen. And this is all customizable. And then I've got a very simple form of aperture and shutter. And as you can see, as I change it, I'm increasing the shutter speed. And of course, it's getting darker in the room. I'm slowing the shutter speed down. And of course, it's getting lighter. Same with aperture. Any lens has got an aperture ring. You can do it on the lens, or I can override that and slot it into A, and it will give me an automatic view. So let's have a look at the histogram. I'm happy with that. There we go. Let's leave it at that. I'm at 1.8 on the lens. The ambient light is set to 0 because I'm on ISO 800. If I had an automatic, that would be different. So let's go into the autofocus modes. And this is the function menu. And we've got a lot of different technology. We've got autofocus single, autofocus automatic. We're going to look more at autofocus continuous, direct manual focus, where you've got combination of manual and auto, and then full manual focus as well. So we're going to look at AFC, and we're going to change the focus area to wide. Now, 693 AF points, or green squares that will appear on the screen. Phase detection based on movement, contrast AF based on different colors, shades, etc. As you can see here, I'm changing the ISO and it's changing accordingly, and the white balance as well, as I'm seeing a live view. So I don't have to take the shot, play it back, make sure it's okay, tweak it, play it back. I can do it live. And if I want to change the slots, for example, and this is all customizable here. And as you can see here, the speed I've increased to 5. So when I depress the shutter, a load of green boxes come up based on how close I am or movement and contrast. And at the moment, this dinosaur is closest to me, so it's focusing on that. Now I'm going to move the camera, and as I'm moving and I keep my finger on the shutter, it goes from one subject to the other. I'm not taking a photograph. I'm just moving the camera around as it focuses around. You can see the back of the shed there. Okay, I'm moving it around. It focuses again and back to the front. So I'm not actually moving the joystick. I'm not touching the screen. I've just got my finger on the shutter and it moves accordingly. So it's lightning fast. It's very fast indeed. And again, this is technology we've had in our cameras now for a couple of years. Zone is, I've just moved the camera over so I can show you, you're localizing the autofocus points into quadrants or squares on the sensor. So what that basically means is anything outside that square that moves won't focus. It'll just stay in that square. I think I'll move it across. Yeah, so there we go. And so if, say, that dinosaur on the right started to move, it would stay in that square. And likewise, if I press the joystick in, it will go back to the center. I tend to use this a lot when my kids are running around. I kind of localize it and it's more, I gain more accuracy. I've taken the shot. There is no card. It has a very small buffer. You can just see that's 300% zoom in without any thought process gone into this. So you can see it's pretty sharp, and hopefully you can see how sharp it is on your screens. When you take a shot on a Sony camera and you zoom in, it should go to the sharpest point. And that's important when you're doing eye focus. Again, here I can be told where it's over or underexposed, and I've got all the RGB color feedback as well. Okay, center. Quite self-explanatory. It focuses on the center of the image. Again, I can compose differently and use that AF point. Now, that AF point is like a large area. So again, highly unlikely that if I focus in that square, anything else around it will be in focus. Flexible spot. The way I used to use my DSLR, if I was taking a portrait, I move the spot around, find the eye, take the shot, ask the person to keep still, take the shot, play it back, and so on. Well, as you can see here, of course, I'm not asking the dinosaur to move, but staying in one position. I'm going to go and focus on the eye. Now I'm using the joystick, but I can use the back of the touchscreen to do this, and it's literally instant. Again, once I'm finding the eye, eventually find it, believe me, trust me, I take the shot and I zoom in. And because it's that central point, there we go, it goes straight to the eye. Okay, so that just gives you an overview of some of the autofocus modes, and we leave the best till last, basically. So I just show you, I can move around the screen and focus at the back. Let's take the shot, zoom in, and it takes me to where I focus. So you pretty much have got, the official line is 93% AF coverage, so we're just short of 100% there, but you can go right into the corner. I know a lot of sports photographers tend to use this mode. This is one spot area with a little bit of tracking around it. So again, if it was a football game or a rugby game, they're not interested in maybe the players coming in from the left and exiting from the right. They're looking at the impact and the tackles, etc. So you could use this to your best ability with whether you're locked on or you're using high responsive. It's detecting me moving, it's detecting the blood in my veins moving, and as I'm moving the autofocus around, it's trying to keep the autofocus steady, as well as the stabilization in the camera, trying to keep the sensor steady as well. And then the final one, and this is where the A9 and the A9 II and the A7R4 are at their best. They have the best tracking autofocus. The A7 III is very good, but what happens, I can't demonstrate it in this demo, but a box will appear around a larger box than what you're seeing here. It will appear around the subject that you're focusing on, and it literally doesn't let go. So this is a slight adaptation of that. It's very reliable, and again, I won't go through all the menus, the autofocus points again, but you can do tracking in zone, wide, center, etc. Okay, so that just gives you an overview of the autofocus. It is very different to how you compose, say, an older DSLR and some of our older technology. As you find with brand new products that come out, they have the latest autofocus tracking and so on. So with the A7 III, you have an amazing functionality, but it's the R4 and the A9 Mark II that have the more improved focusing. And like I showed you earlier with the range, you can see that through the specification list. Finally, eye autofocus and animal eye autofocus. I take some footage a few weeks ago I'd like to share with you, but rest assured, this technology has been on our cameras for nearly 3 generations of cameras over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's gradually become just so reliable and accurate that gone are the days of worrying if the eye on a human is going to be picked up. And if you're using the fastest lenses that we have in the range, then the reaction time is lightning fast, and you can get some incredible detail. So what I'm going to show you is just how easy it works. And now with the latest models, we've also got eye autofocus in video. So this will just show you a little bit about how it works. So let's flick to my autofocus. Now, they always say don't work with pets and animals. And one of the things is you've got to make sure that you're set up with animal IAF, because otherwise it won't work. So as you can see, it didn't work on my cat. So we choose animal. I've got my histogram reading there, and the cat or the animal needs to be looking up. So I'm zooming in. I've got my level gauge. I change the display. It's focusing on my cat, and there it is. It finds an eye. Once it's green, it means it's locked on. Once it's white, it means it's detected. Now, she's not playing ball here, but let's try it again. And there we go, straight in. And I'm taking the shot as well. So you can see it's pretty accurate. If you're shooting humans, it's obviously made for that originally. So this is my son, there he is, and this is a readout of the screen of the camera. It's picking up his face and it's picking up his eye straight away, and there's my daughter, and it picks up her eye as well. I'm not moving, I'm on a tripod here, so it's detecting how she moves. She goes out of the screen. Here she is again. Now, like I said, the opposite now. I need to make sure it's in human. otherwise it won't pick it up. Change it to human, and straight away there I can take the shot, and her hair is over her eyes actually. So you can just see that it works incredibly well. And just to give you a quick bit of example of an image, we're looking for one of the shots I took. So this is the playback menu in the camera. There we go. We'll choose this one here. And like I said, when you've taken the shot and you zoom in, it goes to the sharpest point. So there's the feedback of the image. We'll zoom in, and there we go. It goes straight to the eye. There's no editing here. This is straight out of camera. So, you know, you rest assured that one of those shots I took, it got the eye in focus. And here we go, there's my daughter again. And when you put something up, it still sometimes actually reads it. It's it works so well. It's fantastic. It really helps me get the best shots of my family. And again, there's the cat moving away, bright sunlight, sticks a tongue out of me, but there we go. And this is in video. So this is set up, and you can see I've got objects in front of me. It picks up my eye, and this is, nobody is using the camera at all. My son comes towards me. This is a video I made for a retailer recently, and you can just see, and this is actually on the RX 100 Mark 7. So it's not just in the full frame and APS-C cameras, it's also in the compact cameras as well. So Colin, there we go. We've kind of a brief overview in a short amount of space, from range to technology, and yeah, and a bit of fun along the way. So thank you for the opportunity to share that. And if there's, you know, technology there that you're not used to, or you think, wow, that would work well for me, then obviously visit our websites, visit the retailer website, and you know, play this back and have a look again. We are doing one-to-one sessions with retailers. If there's something you want to have more of an intimate call over half an hour in a very safe environment, then you can do that. Well, TV's gone off. There we go. Visit the retailer websites for more details as well. But yeah, there we go.
Brilliant. We've got loads of questions coming in, but before we jump onto the questions, did you want to go over the offers that
yeah, absolutely. So WEX are kindly sponsoring this with us, as we do with other retailers for other activities. So it's really important that those of you that are with us and have or will be watching this, I'm just bringing up the WEX website. This is a unique URL website. That if you register your details, this is solely for offers only. There will be a tick box, I think, that allows you to have more marketing data, but this is purely for offers only. Once you register, you should be getting in your email box. Make sure you check your junk, just in case it's gone there. And this will give you additional offers for viewing the webinar, either live or recorded. It does have some expiry date on it, and that will be explained in the email you get back. At the same time, we have the summer cashback campaign that's still running. It runs till the 31st of July. So these offers from WEX and Sony are on top of the current cashback. So you'll save quite a bit of money here. You know, I really would suggest that if you are in the market for a Sony camera or lens, and take advantage of these offers. And if you do then go and buy the product, thank you very much, obviously. Please make sure you register as well, because if you visit this website, I think, Colin, you've got it. You've got the web URL.
I'll post the comments. Yeah,
brilliant. You are entitled to 1 year additional warranty on top of what the retailer is offering you. So please make sure you register before, I think, January next year. So there is a list of products that's applicable. So just check that your product is on there. It has to be purchased in the UK or Ireland as well. So not applicable to any other country. Yeah, and that, unless you want to offer anything else as well, then that is it. But please take advantage of those offers, because when we do events, we do obviously support events like the roadshows, where you can get additional offers as well, only unique at these venues and so on, and the organisations we work with. So with the SWPP, you can only get these offers via WEX. But yeah, please, and good luck.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark, for that. Are you okay to answer just a couple of questions? I
Carry
know we've got about 5 minutes left on the webinar, so we'll jump to, I think Kathy asked this one. How does your mirrorless compare to the Olympus system for someone who may wish to move over? Okay,
well, I have a high regard for Olympus products. My opinion. I love the people that work at Olympus as well. I was fortunate to work for Panasonic for 8 years before I joined Sony. So I used to use 4/3 cameras, and I found with 4/3 cameras, I love the lightweightness, the small aspect of the cameras, and really good quality. I think if you've currently got that system and you're looking to move to Sony, there are some big differences. Again, I won't go into detail. You can find that out yourselves through research. But what my own opinion of using 4/3 cameras, the autofocusing system's different, low light capabilities are different. Yes, the cameras are slightly a bit bigger. Maybe the lenses are bigger as well. But actually, when you look at the form factor of both products, the latest gear, they're pretty similar in size. In fact, you see some mirrorless manufacturers with smaller size sensors, their bodies are actually a lot bigger. One of the purposes of mirrorless is to try and have the smallest body as you can with the latest technology. So there are a wide range of different pieces of technology you can benefit from, all different systems. I think that's the challenge in the market now, is there's so many to choose from. But I think from an innovative point of view, with latest tracking, autofocus, speed, the reliability, battery life, files, so dynamic range, detail, shallow depth of field with full frame, and the ability to have one mount for the whole system. So there's just short of 100 different lenses that you can add to the body. So you could come in at a flat retro modern APS-C size and grow within the system, or you start off with an A7 III or rounder and you build up from there. The system's 5-6 years old now, so we have a large amount of lenses in the market. There's a lot of third-party product hardware as well, so it's not just Sony you can choose from. Ideally, you would be, but yeah. So there's a huge range of products you can choose from, whereas with maybe some manufacturers quite limited. So, but that's not a negative. But well, good luck in your choice.
Brilliant, perfect. Next question is from Zoltan. How do you find the sensor attracting dust problem? Is it really an issue with the mirrorless interchangeable lens camera systems?
Again, a really good question. So having a DSLR previously and talking to DSLR users, obviously you get grime and dust and bits of metal and all that kind of stuff, and it's depending on if you clean it yourself or you have it cleaned professionally or whatever, you can eradicate that. End user, the person using it, if you're looking after your kit, you can obviously, whatever camera you're using, you can reduce that element of dust. With mirrorless cameras, you look across the board, some have wave filters across the front which repels dust. Again, I find it, I clean my own sensors, even though my kit is through Sony. I've learned how to clean the sensor, so it's really important that you have you actually have the camera on. I find with the stabilization on, because if you don't, you could be moving the sensor and the gyro. Once you switch it on, it actually activates and stays in one place. So there's a lot of information out there how to and so on, but at the end of the day, don't try it yourself, get it done by somebody else. But coming back to the question, I find that compared to what I used to have, there is less dust, but I could pick up a camera now and there's dust on it. It's easily removed. I don't see it as an issue. Again, if I don't look after it and I've opened it up to the elements, then I'm asking for it. There is a self-cleaning mechanism inside. It helps repel any dust. It vibrates the gyro quite a few times, which will repel that off. So there are things in the camera that you can use. But I don't see that as an issue if you're looking to switch to mirrorless. No.
Brilliant. Let's go to this question from Hannah. Does the A7 Mark III have eye autofocus in both photo and video?
Unfortunately not, only in stills. It is the latest models, the A7R4, 9 Mark II, RX100 Mark VII, A6600 as well have that. So whether or not that's going to be added in the future, I obviously can't say. I don't know. But at the moment, the A7 III has eye autofocus just in stills.
Brilliant. I'm kind of following on for that. Jane's asking, can you have human and animal eye autofocus at the same time?
No. I mean, the cameras are good, but that would be quite it's a good point actually, because pet photography, it's not just an emerging market, it's a very popular market, and I see more and more professionals move into that and doing brilliant jobs. If you've got somebody with a with an animal, etc., that would be good, but unfortunately not. Sorry.
Perfect. And I think we'll go to this for the last question. I'm a sports photographer and mirrorless cameras as fast as my digital SLR.
Oh, well, do you know what? When we meet a lot of people, that's a very common objection, and you can imagine the banter we have at events when we talk to people like that, and we all respect everyone's opinion. The days have gone of mirrorless cameras not being able to achieve pro DSLR, and we're talking a few years now, abilities in autofocusing, speed, buffer time, and whether that's raw, compressed, etc. The A9 and the A9 Mark II can shoot nearly 300 raw shots to the memory of the sensor before it hits the card. So if you've got one of the latest SD cards in the market, it will just continuously shoot without any blackout on a mirrorless camera. That's just like ridiculous. It's the speed, the accuracy, the reliability. And look at the reviews, look at the journalist reviews, the press reviews, look at end user reviews. It's very clear mirrorless cameras are not, second best to older analog technology.
Brilliant. Perfect. Just before we head off and complete this webinar, just like to remind members and anyone watching that we have got another 2 webinars planned with Sony. So we've got Wedding Photography Express with Stephen Neeson. That's on Wednesday next week, the 15th of July, from 7 o'clock at night. And we also have Terry Donnelly joining us on Tuesday, the 28th of July, from 7 o'clock in the evening, on his wheelchair air ambulance project and using the Sony kit to achieve the results that he did. So we're looking forward to both of them. So put those in your diary, and we're looking forward to them. Again, if you've got any burning questions that come in after this, then perhaps tune into either Stephen's or Terry's webinar, and we can pitch them direct at either Stephen or Terry. And of course, myself and Mark will be here on both those webinars as well, so we can ask any of those questions direct to Mark as well. So we're looking forward to those 2.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us today. Brilliant to have you part of the webinar series, and we're looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you for everybody that watches.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, mate. Take care.
Cheers.